Welcome back. Breaking news this morning from Vice President JD Vance on his plan to travel to East Palestine, Ohio tomorrow to mark 2 years since the disastrous train derailment, which released highly toxic chemicals into the air, soil, and groundwater. Joining me now in his first television interview since being confirmed as the new EPA Administrator is Lee Zeldin. He'll be joining the Vice President on the ground in Ohio tomorrow. EPA Administrator, congratulations. Thank you so much for being here, Lee Zeldin.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Great to be with you.
Before I get into your trip with the Vice President tomorrow, President Trump told me that your role is one of the most important roles in the entire administration. Can you tell us what your priorities are?
Well, so much of the president's economic agenda and his desire to make sure that the federal government is not just being good stewards of tax dollars, but being responsive in making our country more energy dominant, making America the AI capital of the world, bringing back American auto jobs. We have an important role to play working with other agencies to provide that American prosperity that the president campaigned on. The American people, many of them had never voted for a Republican in the past. They wanted to vote for President Trump because they believe in his leadership after seeing the last 4 years contrasted with the president's first term 4 years earlier. And they want America to be restored to greatness. And President Trump's the man. I'm excited to be working with him and our new vice president. We have a lot to do for the American people, and I'm excited to get to work.
Well, you sure do, Lee, and I'm going to zero in right there where you said the economic agenda, because the economic agenda so far has been tariffs. And this is unnerving markets, I believe. Already I'm looking at some research reports this morning. Piper Sandler, the greatest show on earth. TD from Canada, the largest free trade zone in the world, USMCA, signed into law by Trump in 2020, appears to be no more, with tariffs of 25% on Canada and Mexico, sparking both of our neighbors to the north and south to promise retaliation. And we're going to hear that retaliation Monday. I suspect markets will react. Your reaction to these tariffs and the impact?
President Trump has done this once, and it worked. We'll do it again. President Trump has thought this through. We saw it with the USMCA from President Trump's first term, which was a huge success, replacing NAFTA. And there is that moment where maybe it feels like friction and uncertainty. But President Trump's leadership and the strength and power of the American economy, we have talented people who are working alongside of President Trump to implement this agenda. And I'm confident that we'll achieve the outcome and the vision that President Trump has. He is not going into this blind. He's done it once, it worked. He'll do it again. It'll work this time too.
Well, that's what President Trump said to me on Friday. I saw him in the Oval Office, and he said to me, look, there may be some disturbance, there may be some disruption, but at the end of the day, we're done getting taken advantage of, and we're going to institute these tariffs. But I want to know, as the EPA leader, where specifically you will be working and where your involvement is. How does this impact your portfolio?
Well, listen, the EPA's mission is to protect human health and the environment. In executing that mission, we can't turn a blind eye to the economy. We have to make sure that any regulation that is out there is a regulation that is taking into account the economic impacts. In the name of climate change, you can't be bankrupting a country and bankrupting people who are struggling to make ends meet. So all across America, it is important for us to do our job, executing our mission, and in a way that makes this country stronger, not weaker, and being good stewards of the tax dollars, not tossing gold bars off the Titanic, as the Biden political appointee of the EPA said in recent weeks. We can't be wasting tax dollars, and we also have to be responsive to natural disaster. And whether it is in LA with the wildfires, Western North Carolina and the hurricane response, or tomorrow's visit with our great Vice President to East Palestine, Ohio, EPA has important work to do on the ground to fight for the American people.
Oh, so you'll be going with the Vice President tomorrow to Ohio. You will go to L.A. to look at the wildfires later in the week, and perhaps to North Carolina as well. Is your main goal here, Lee, to roll back the regulations that strangled businesses and stopped their progression of growth?
We have to follow our obligations under the law and to make sure that we are following common sense. What is pragmatic? What the American people would be charging us for? And what's going on in LA right now is the largest wildfire response in the history of the EPA, helping to remove hazardous material. In East Palestine, Ohio, as you pointed out, we're talking about contamination of land, soil, and air. This was the first example that we saw of our great vice president as an elected official proving that he has the leadership ability and talent, because he went straight there on the ground. As soon as disaster struck, he was the first one in a very high-profile manner. And then we saw President Trump, 19 days after the derailment, unlike President Biden, who took a whole year to get to East Palestine, Ohio. So being present on the ground is an important leadership trait. And I want to make sure that I, as EPA Administrator, that I'm doing my part, and that the American people can be proud of the EPA. That is our charge. And that's something I'm committed to, I'm excited about, and I'm motivated to tackle.
Lee, we are excited to follow your work. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for your leadership on energy in particular. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin will be watching. Thank you, sir.